I received an official directive at sunrise. The sealed envelope included a mission statement, route details, and strict instructions to maintain absolute silence about the cargo. My name, Jack Carter, appeared on every form. The objective involved retrieving a classified container from a border town and delivering it to a secure facility on American soil. When I inquired about the container's contents, my superiors informed me that only top leadership had the clearance to share such information. After reading the file in detail, I traveled by jeep to the military base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The route took me across flat stretches of desert highways before reaching a checkpoint staffed by armed guards. They requested my identification, verified the vehicle number, and waved me inside. A large sign designated this restricted area as a hub for advanced operations. Inside the base, I saw convoys, specialized armaments, and tense soldiers awaiting orders. Colonel Harrington greeted me at the entrance to the main administrative building. He handed me a set of additional documents and explained that the operation held the highest secrecy classification. He directed me to a briefing room where Tyler Brooks, the squad leader assigned to protect the cargo, was waiting. Tyler held a list of resources, personnel rosters, and timetables. He appeared focused on the success of this mission, but said little about the container itself. Michael Stone, an agent from a Secret Service branch, joined us shortly afterward. He showed me an official badge and offered a brief introduction. He indicated that he would record every stage of the convoy's progress. I noticed him carrying a sleek case filled with encrypted communication devices and various security credentials. He reminded me to follow the established chain of command and disclose nothing to personnel outside our designated team. His demeanor was direct. Colonel Harrington then explained the convoy structure. Several armored trucks and support vehicles would escort the container once we secured it. Tyler Brooks's squad was tasked with perimeter defense, while Michael Stone oversaw intelligence gathering. My role involved navigating the route, managing official paperwork, and reporting any unexpected developments. The colonel stressed that our responsibilities were interconnected. We were to function as a coordinated unit, with no room for individual improvisation or unauthorized decisions. I observed a sense of heightened caution throughout the base. Classified radio transmissions came through secured channels, and armed patrols circled the perimeter. Tyler insisted on reviewing every detail of the route I had been given. He circled key points on the map, marking choke zones and potential ambush sites. Michael Stone glanced over the route plan as well, but withheld his comments. He only asked me about the time frame for departure and the readiness of each vehicle. At noon, Colonel Harrington convened a short meeting inside a secure hangar. He stood beside Tyler Brooks and Michael Stone. I joined them as they examined the final paperwork. The colonel reaffirmed the operations classification and reminded us that further details regarding the container were restricted to high-ranking individuals. He declared that Tyler's unit would handle all protective measures once the mission commenced. I was instructed to remain alongside Tyler's team and await further orders. We finalized the necessary security passes and verified communication protocols. Each vehicle contained encrypted radios linked to a centralized command console. The mission documentation confirmed our route across rural stretches of New Mexico, requiring periodic check-ins at designated waypoints. We were to avoid major highways, relying instead on lesser-known roads marked on the official map. Our superiors emphasized that only select individuals could access the convoy's exact location, preventing any unwanted interception or intelligence leak. Before leaving, I confirmed my assignment in the lead transport vehicle. Tyler Brooks reviewed the arrangement and gave me a seat near the communication station, ensuring I could monitor transmissions. The team loaded standard military supplies and maintained a strict schedule to meet the departure deadline. Michael Stone stayed nearby, documenting each procedural step. His notes included the container's classification code, the list of authorized personnel, and signatures from each department involved in the operation. At the final briefing, Colonel Harrington looked at me and Tyler Brooks. He said the assignment depended on secrecy. Then he ordered us to move out. We boarded the vehicles and waited for the gates to open. The sun beat down on the yard as our convoy began rolling forward. I felt the weight of responsibility, aware that a misstep could jeopardize the mission. This was the start of our journey. I spent my first morning on the base inspecting the convoy's vehicles alongside Tyler Brooks's squad. We had 4 main transports, each fitted with reinforced plating and bullet-resistant glass. We also had support jeeps equipped with heavy armaments. Mechanics reviewed engine conditions, fluid levels, and tire integrity. Communication technicians tested the radio equipment, ensuring continuous signal reception. Everything was cataloged in a log that Michael Stone used for official documentation. Tyler observed every step with unwavering attention. Several crates of ammunition were stacked near one of the hangars. Tyler directed his men to inspect both standard rounds and specialized silver bullets. I watched as they counted each magazine and placed them into labeled containers. I found it odd that we had silver bullets at all, though I did not voice my curiosity in front of senior leadership. The men handling the munitions did not comment. They simply followed Tyler's instructions and moved on. Michael Stone appeared with a clipboard containing additional security forms. He requested that each driver sign off on maintenance checks. He also wanted to confirm that navigation devices were synchronized. I assisted by verifying route coordinates. Our map included 2 alternate paths in case we encountered blocked roads or suspicious activity. Stone made notes about these contingency plans, adding them to his official record. He insisted that every detail be logged for accountability and traceability. Tyler instructed the drivers to complete final inspections of their vehicles. They examined fuel gauges, oil pressure, and coolant levels. The lead transport carried specialized communication hardware, so its crew ran an additional diagnostic on signal clarity. Everything appeared functional. Tyler watched over their shoulders, ensuring no oversight. Some of the men attached rangefinders and night vision scopes to their rifles, expecting possible low-light conditions. Nothing seemed out of place, though tension lingered among the ranks. An officer handed me a folder containing threat assessments. These documents detailed known criminal groups along our planned route. Several patrols had encountered smugglers and armed raiders in remote desert areas. The file advised caution and recommended swift response to hostile engagements. Tyler studied the pages and highlighted possible hotspots. He told me to keep these warnings accessible, in case we needed a quick reference. Michael Stone also requested a copy for his personal records. During a break, I overheard 2 soldiers discussing the unusual presence of silver bullets. One soldier asked if the brass anticipated wild animal threats. The other shrugged, mentioning that official statements did not specify. I avoided that conversation, preferring not to reveal my own questions. Our orders were clear: do not dispute the chain of command. Tyler and Michael Stone both seemed comfortable with the arrangement, so I remained silent and focused on my tasks. By midday, the convoy formation was nearly complete. 4 transports stood in a single row, and 2 support jeeps flanked them on either side. Each driver received a laminated copy of the route. Communication checks confirmed stable connections between vehicles and the base. Tyler reviewed each soldier's readiness, from body armor to helmet fit. He expressed satisfaction with the preparations. Michael Stone watched from a distance, scribbling notes. Nobody questioned the mission's specifics or objectives. An announcement came over the loudspeaker, instructing all personnel to stand by for final approval. Tyler and I walked to a small control station where an officer checked the convoy's manifest. Once the paperwork was verified, the officer pressed a button that signaled readiness. I noticed a sense of urgency behind his calm exterior. The base operated under tight protocols. Every movement needed authorization. Tyler gave me a nod, suggesting we were on schedule for departure. Before climbing into my assigned transport, I surveyed the line of trucks and jeeps. Mechanics had secured additional gear, spare tires, extra fuel cans, and basic repair kits. Medical personnel handed out first aid supplies, ensuring each vehicle carried essential items. Tyler's men loaded the final cases of ammunition, including the silver rounds. Michael Stone spoke briefly with an officer at the perimeter gate, presumably confirming external security patrols. Nothing remained except to await the official signal. When the siren sounded, Tyler climbed onto the lead transport and motioned for the convoy to advance. Engines roared to life, and I heard radios crackle with coded chatter. Michael Stone lifted his device, recording our departure time. We moved toward the exit, passing barricades and sentries. I checked my watch, noting the moment. This was the culmination of our preparations. We were now fully committed to transporting the container. We left the base at midday, rolling onto a stretch of desert highway that extended for several miles. Tyler Brooks sat in the lead vehicle's passenger seat, scanning the roadside through binoculars. Michael Stone occupied the second truck, maintaining radio contact with the rest of us. I directed our drivers using the official map. The first checkpoint was 30 miles ahead near the southern border. We kept a steady pace, mindful of dust clouds and heat. The desert presented a bleak environment, with sparse vegetation and isolated boulders. Our convoy maintained formation, each vehicle separated by about 50 yards. Wind carried fine sand across the asphalt. The drivers communicated in brief intervals, reporting engine temperatures and road conditions. I listened for any sign of trouble. Tyler occasionally requested updates on our exact position, and I replied with mileage markers gleaned from the navigation system. Michael Stone recorded every transmission without interruption. After covering 10 miles, we stopped briefly to verify our map coordinates. An advanced GPS device indicated we were on schedule. We had no radio interference. Tyler and Michael Stone conferred on a secure channel, ensuring that all vehicles maintained consistent spacing. The sky remained clear, revealing a scorching sun overhead. I stepped out to stretch my legs, feeling the dry air against my skin. Then I climbed back into the lead truck to continue onward. The checkpoint loomed ahead after another 20 miles. We saw a modest facility with barricades, armed personnel, and a small office. The border sign stood to one side, marking this crossing between New Mexico and the adjacent region. Our convoy approached slowly to avoid alarming the guards. Tyler instructed the drivers to present identification documents and remain inside their vehicles. I handed our official papers through the window, and the border officer examined them carefully. The officer motioned for a secondary inspection area, so we followed his directions. He walked around the trucks, glancing at the reinforced panels and tinted windows. Another official approached with a handheld scanner, presumably checking for radiation or contraband. Tyler exited the lead vehicle to provide additional confirmation of our mission status. The officer asked about our cargo, but Tyler repeated the standard response regarding classified material. Michael Stone monitored the exchange through the radio. The checkpoint personnel eventually waved us onward, satisfied with our credentials. We proceeded across the boundary, entering a region marked by rugged terrain and sparse habitations. Michael Stone used the convoy's radio channel to log the exact time of crossing. He requested confirmation from each driver, ensuring that everyone stayed in sync. Tyler signaled to maintain our previous formation. I updated the route tracker, noting that we had passed the first major checkpoint without incident. Beyond the border post, the highway cut through a winding stretch of desert hills. Signs warned of steep grades and sharp turns. Our vehicles navigated these curves carefully, keeping speeds moderate. The radio remained quiet, aside from occasional status checks. Tyler asked me if there were any reported hazards ahead. I consulted the documents that listed potential threats, finding nothing specific for the next few miles. Michael Stone continued making entries on his electronic device. As we advanced, the radio crackled with an incoming transmission from the rear support jeep. A soldier reported unusual tire wear caused by scattered debris. Tyler instructed them to stay alert and clear any minor obstructions if possible. I noted the position on our map in case such hazards repeated further along. The temperature climbed steadily, and some men mentioned the intense heat over the channel. We pressed forward, determined to keep our schedule intact. An hour later, we reached a dusty junction with a rusted sign indicating a split in the highway. The map showed a smaller road leading toward a border town where we were scheduled to pick up the container. Tyler confirmed this was our next destination. Michael Stone reminded everyone to maintain radio discipline. I relayed instructions to the drivers, telling them to reduce speed as we turned onto the narrower route. We advanced with caution. 15 minutes later, we spotted the outskirts of the town in the distance. A cluster of low buildings broke the monotony of the horizon. Tyler had me check the mission log once more, confirming we were on the correct approach. Michael Stone noted the time and broadcast a report to the base. We had traversed more than 70 miles without incident, though the environment remained hostile. Our next step involved loading the container. I guided our convoy toward the border town's main entrance. Low adobe structures lined the dusty street, and a few curious onlookers watched from doorways. Tyler Brooks instructed 2 jeeps to secure a perimeter, positioning them at opposite ends of the narrow road. Michael Stone stepped out to note our arrival time and coordinate with local officials. We had come to retrieve the classified container. Our orders specified that a contact would meet us here. A man emerged from a nearby building, carrying a clipboard and wearing a vest. He introduced himself as the local liaison responsible for transferring the container to our custody. He spoke briefly with Tyler, verifying our clearance documents. I watched as they exchanged coded references. Michael Stone documented the conversation by jotting notes. Once the liaison confirmed everything was in order, he directed us toward a loading dock behind the building, where the container waited. We proceeded around the structure. A large metal box stood near a ramp. Its sides were reinforced, and the entire exterior appeared scorched and dented. Several soldiers from Tyler's unit approached it cautiously. They moved in a coordinated manner, scanning the area for potential threats. I could sense their apprehension. Michael Stone remained a few yards away, checking items off his manifest. The local liaison handed me a set of keys meant for unlocking multiple latches. Tyler ordered our technical specialists to examine the container before loading. They measured the dimensions, checked structural integrity, and verified pressure seals. One soldier tapped on the metal walls, listening for suspicious echoes. Another inspected the locking mechanisms, ensuring no tampering had occurred. Everything matched the specifications in our mission file. Michael Stone maintained a running log of these findings, referencing official guidelines. We had to confirm that the cargo was stable enough for transport. Once the inspection ended, we signaled the loading crew. A hydraulic lift on the dock raised the container to truck bed height. Tyler positioned his squad around the perimeter, weapons ready. Michael Stone captured photographs of the procedure for the mission record. The local liaison stood by, observing the process without speaking. I watched as the container settled onto the reinforced flatbed. Clamps on each corner latched into place, securing the heavy cargo with mechanical locks. The moment the container touched down, I heard a muffled scream from within. It was followed by a deep, guttural sound that resembled an animal's growl. Several soldiers reacted, stepping back with raised rifles. Tyler shouted for everyone to hold position. Michael Stone's demeanor shifted. He spoke into his radio, requesting the status of the locking system. I felt an unsettling tension. Nobody had mentioned living cargo. The local liaison offered no explanation. Tyler marched over to the local liaison demanding clarification. The liaison hesitated, then claimed he was instructed not to disclose details about the contents. I stood close enough to overhear their exchange. Tyler reminded him that our operation required accurate information to ensure safe transport. The liaison repeated that he could not elaborate. Michael Stone approached, stating that we must secure the container regardless of what was inside. The liaison nodded but provided no further data. Despite the disturbing noises, Tyler ordered the squad to complete the loading. Soldiers double-checked the clamps and added extra restraints. One man attached a thick chain to reinforce the latch assembly. Michael Stone updated the mission log, describing the unexpected vocalizations from inside. I noticed more apprehension among the squad. The local liaison signed transfer papers, effectively releasing the container into our custody. We were now responsible for whatever was locked behind those metal walls. Tyler signaled for immediate departure. He wanted us moving before any local bystanders grew more curious. The scream and roar had drawn a crowd, and our trucks were too exposed in the open street. I climbed into the lead vehicle and relayed the order to the rest of the convoy. Engines started and the perimeter detail rejoined the formation. Michael Stone stood by the truck with the container, documenting every moment as we prepared to leave. With the container secured, our convoy pulled away from the loading dock and navigated the streets until we reached the town's outskirts. Tyler directed the formation to return to our main highway route. I glanced back and saw the truck hauling the container at the center. Michael Stone's voice came through the radio, confirming that all restraints were holding. We left the border town behind, carrying a screaming cargo that none of us understood. After leaving the border town, our convoy merged onto a highway running north. We maintained a steady speed, hoping to cover more miles before nightfall. Tyler Brooks instructed each driver to check in at 15-minute intervals. Michael Stone sat in the second vehicle, monitoring communications and logging data. I occupied the lead truck, observing the road ahead. The container remained at the center of the formation, guarded by several armed soldiers who showed visible unease. Roughly an hour into the journey, static crackled over our radio channel. One of the support jeeps reported suspicious vehicles trailing us at a distance of 200 yards. Tyler took the call, instructing everyone to maintain speed but remain alert. I peered into the side mirror, glimpsing the faint outline of dark SUVs behind us. Michael Stone requested more details. The Jeep's gunner tried to zoom in with a rifle scope but saw no identifying markings. Minutes later, gunfire erupted from behind. I heard the cracks of rifles. Tyler radioed an immediate warning. Unknown hostiles were attacking the rear vehicles. Our convoy accelerated, engines roaring as drivers tried to create distance. Soldiers in the trailing jeeps returned fire with standard ammunition. Michael Stone documented every development over the command channel. I gripped the steering wheel, bracing for further escalation. The container truck maintained position, flanked by 2 heavily armed escorts. Sparks flew off our armor as bullets struck the rear truck. Tyler instructed us to keep moving rather than stop and engage. We had to protect the cargo. The desert highway stretched ahead, with few escape routes. Michael Stone relayed that multiple shooters occupied at least 3 SUVs. Our soldiers aimed carefully, hoping to disable the pursuing vehicles. I listened to radio chatter describing muzzle flashes and damaged tires. The men appeared resolved to hold formation. Suddenly, one of our support jeeps lost control. The driver's voice crackled over the radio, reporting a shot to the engine block. Smoke billowed from under the hood. Tyler ordered the rest of the convoy to keep going as he dispatched a rescue detail. I spotted the disabled jeep swerving onto the shoulder. Gunfire continued from behind, intensifying with each passing second. Michael Stone recorded the incident, noting the time and the approximate coordinates of the breakdown. A group of hostile fighters emerged from one of the SUVs, advancing toward the broken jeep. Tyler's squad engaged them with rifle fire. I saw muzzle flashes in my side mirror. The attackers moved with discipline, using the terrain for cover. Michael Stone radioed that the forward vehicles should not turn back. Our primary objective remained the container's safety. I pushed the accelerator, feeling the tension in every mile. Soldiers at the rear fought fiercely. Amid the chaos, I noticed a soldier from the second truck jump out and sprint toward the container vehicle. He wore the same uniform as the rest of us, but his move drew my attention. He disappeared behind the armored trailer, vanishing from my line of sight. Gunfire echoed through my earpiece, overshadowing everything else. Tyler's commands blended with static. Michael Stone demanded a status update. I could not determine the soldier's intent or identity. I attempted to call out over the radio, but interference drowned my message. The unknown soldier remained unseen. Tyler's voice came through in fragments, instructing squads to hold positions. Another burst of gunfire tore through the air. The trailing vehicles continued exchanging shots with the attackers, who seemed intent on halting our convoy. Michael Stone reported multiple casualties among our ranks, though exact numbers were unclear. The driver next to me pressed forward, avoiding debris. Despite taking losses, we managed to push ahead. Some of the hostile SUVs fell back, damaged by our return fire. Tyler announced that we were continuing the route. He ordered a partial regroup once we cleared the kill zone. Michael Stone requested a medical check on each vehicle. I scanned the area, trying to see if the soldier who ran toward the container had returned. No sign of him. The container truck stayed in motion, presumably intact. Once we broke free from danger, Tyler directed us to maintain formation and assess our casualties. Radio chatter revealed that a few men were wounded or missing. Nobody realized yet that one of those missing soldiers was a traitor who had moved toward the container. Michael Stone continued logging events, unaware of the infiltration. Our vehicles rumbled onward, operational. Tension permeated the ranks, and we prepared ourselves for the next unexpected development. Gunfire still echoed along the desert highway. We had advanced a short distance from the initial attack site, but the threat remained close. Tyler Brooks ordered a partial halt behind a stretch of broken asphalt, hoping to consolidate our forces. Several vehicles took defensive positions around the container truck, and soldiers dismounted to scan the horizon with rifles raised. Smoke lingered from a damaged jeep that had been abandoned during the ambush. Communication crackled across our radios, with Michael Stone requesting updates from each vehicle. I stood near the lead truck, trying to coordinate the formation. The sun bore down and tension weighed on every soldier. Our training taught us to anticipate hidden dangers, yet nothing prepared us for what happened next. A shout came from the rear of the container truck. One of our men, wearing the same uniform and carrying standard gear, moved toward the heavy locks. At first, I did not realize he was the same figure I had seen sprinting toward the container earlier. He used a bolt cutter to snap a steel latch, and the entire rear door creaked open. Several soldiers noticed the breach and rushed forward, demanding he step away. He ignored them and pulled the handle, exposing the interior. A massive shape burst from the darkness within. Its form towered over everyone in the immediate vicinity. Matted fur rippled with each movement. The creature dropped to the ground on 2 legs, then lunged forward with a swift motion. Soldiers opened fire, but standard bullets had little effect. The man who had cut the lock made no attempt to escape. He stood close to the open door, apparently transfixed by the emerging creature. Michael Stone shouted into the radio, urging immediate containment measures. Tyler Brooks tried to rally the squad. I stood nearby, stunned by the sight of the alpha werewolf. Our briefing never hinted at a living entity of that power. The beast's eyes scanned the area with an intelligence that far exceeded any wild animal. It let out a deep growl, then slashed at the closest soldiers. They fell in seconds, their body armor shredded. Panic spread through the ranks, though some men kept firing their rifles. Tyler ordered them to hold formation, but the alpha moved too quickly. It tore through a group of soldiers, inflicting lethal wounds with its claws. The environment erupted in screams and spent shell casings. Michael Stone repeatedly called for silver ammunition, but none of us had direct orders to use it yet. Our standard rounds pinged uselessly off the alpha's thick hide. The man who opened the container vanished among the chaos. I could not see whether he stayed behind the truck or fled into the desert. Tyler advanced, shouting commands for teams to regroup near the lead vehicle. The beast swiped at him, but he dove sideways, avoiding a fatal blow. He rolled behind a damaged jeep, clutching his rifle. The alpha roared and directed its attention elsewhere, attacking more soldiers who were clustered around the truck's flank. I heard metal scraping as the alpha shoved one of our armored trucks aside. It displayed unrestrained strength, sending that vehicle skidding several feet across the battered asphalt. Another soldier tried to rally men with a mounted machine gun, but the beast charged the position, leaving no survivors. Gunfire and cries merged into a single cacophony. Tyler yelled my name, instructing me to coordinate remaining squads by radio. I forced myself to focus. I reached the nearest functioning communication unit and relayed Tyler's orders to any surviving vehicles. We needed to fall back while maintaining covering fire. Michael Stone reported that many soldiers had been killed within moments. He described the alpha's agility and unstoppable force. Tyler crawled out from behind the jeep, wounded by a glancing slash across his torso. Medics attempted to reach him, but the creature's rampage blocked clear access. Despite the overwhelming assault, I transmitted instructions for partial withdrawal. Some drivers reversed their vehicles, forming a tighter arc around the container. The alpha continued to shred anything in its path. At one point, it moved straight toward Tyler, striking him with a brutal swipe. He dropped, bleeding heavily. When the beast pivoted, several men dragged Tyler behind a truck, saving him from an immediate finishing blow. I never saw the traitor again in that moment. Though chaos reigned, I tried to maintain radio discipline. We had to regroup and decide on a new plan. Michael Stone's voice came through, stating that any survivors should converge near the lead transport. The alpha prowled among the wreckage, scanning for more targets. Smoke from burning vehicles obscured the sky. I grabbed my rifle and stood prepared, convinced that our only chance lay in reorganizing before all was lost. Debris covered the highway as we regrouped around the lead transport. Fire from disabled vehicles illuminated the area, making it difficult to hide our positions. The alpha werewolf lurked among the carnage, its movements rapid and unpredictable. Many of us found cover behind shattered trucks, trying to reload or switch to more effective ammunition. Tension thickened when additional hostiles arrived in the distance. Our perimeter guards radioed sightings of new attackers. These unknown combatants advanced on foot, brandishing firearms. Then something else happened. Several of them dropped behind sparse cover and transformed into monstrous shapes. In seconds, they became a force matching the Alpha's dreadful nature, though they were clearly subordinate to it. Some stayed in human form, continuing to shoot at our vehicles, while others rushed forward on powerful legs, ready to tear through our defenses. Michael Stone recognized the threat and shouted an order through the command channel. He insisted we switch to silver bullets. Tyler, still bleeding and partially conscious, tried to echo that command. I relayed the instruction to the remaining squads, directing them to open the specialized ammo crates. Soldiers who survived the Alpha's initial rampage hurried to comply. They loaded silver rounds into rifles and prepared to face the newly arrived werewolves. The first wave of changed attackers lunged at our formation. Shots rang out, striking them with silver projectiles. Unlike standard rounds, these had a visible effect. The werewolves recoiled from the impacts, some collapsing instantly while others thrashed in pain. A small contingent of hostiles in human form fired automatic weapons at us, forcing our men to split attention between the gunfight and the shapeshifters. The entire battlefield erupted in disarray. I crouched behind a damaged truck, coordinating with Michael Stone by radio. He reported that at least 3 werewolves had been confirmed eliminated. Another pair circled the container truck, presumably attempting to reach the Alpha. The big creature roamed the far side of the highway, ignoring bullets that did not contain silver. Several men attempted to flank it, but it barreled through them, leaving few survivors. Tyler's condition worsened while medics tried to stabilize him. They managed to staunch some bleeding, but he remained feverish. He gripped my arm, urging me to keep men focused on the silver bullets. I assured him we were following those orders. With reinforcements from the attacking side joining the fray, our situation felt dire. We had no immediate backup, and the radio link to the base was sporadic. Michael Stone kept transmitting pleas for support, but the distance was great. A cluster of soldiers positioned themselves near the container. They attempted to protect it from any further tampering. One werewolf charged that group, howling as it closed the gap. Silver rounds pounded into its chest, eventually toppling it. Another creature advanced on our flank, slashing 2 men before a sniper placed a bullet through its skull. The bodies of these shapeshifters remained monstrous in death, confirming our worst fears about the nature of this enemy. The Alpha, however, remained unstoppable. It stormed through short bursts of silver fire, sustaining visible injuries but refusing to collapse. Blood streaked its fur, and it let out low rumbles, clearly in pain yet still dangerous. I witnessed it smash through a reinforced barricade, pushing the metal aside with ease. Our attempts to encircle it failed. The shapeshifters who followed it tried to close ranks, but many died under the hail of silver bullets. Eventually, Michael Stone signaled for the convoy to halt its advance. The trucks had formed a partial circle, but the battlefield had become too chaotic for normal movement. We had to stand our ground. The Alpha roared, its stance unsteady yet threatening. Soldiers fired in every direction, trying to hold back the newly arrived hostiles. The highway was littered with spent casings, smoldering vehicles, and the bodies of those who fell. Tyler, delirious from his wound, tried to lift his rifle. A medic forced him to lie still, warning that further exertion could be fatal. He managed to say a few words about preventing the Alpha from escaping. I promised we would continue the fight. In the midst of that promise, another wave of gunshots echoed from beyond our immediate perimeter, suggesting we still faced more hostiles. Michael Stone yelled for everyone to hold formation. We realized that if we could not bring down the Alpha, we might at least contain it until an opportunity arose. The fight showed no sign of ending soon. The creature advanced, wounded but resolute. Our silver bullets slowed it down, though it refused to surrender. At that moment, I realized our convoy was completely stopped on a battlefield controlled by an unstoppable foe, with no obvious means to retreat or secure victory. Our defensive formation crumbled as the Alpha and its followers pressed forward. The shriek of twisted metal and the blasts of rifles echoed across the highway. Soldiers demanded to know why we were hauling such a being, and some of them began shouting questions at Michael Stone. He tried to maintain composure, but the fighting forced everyone to take cover behind wreckage and bullet-ridden vehicles. I took a moment to catch my breath near the lead transport. My chest tightened from exertion, and dust clung to every surface. Shell casings rolled underfoot. Tyler Brooks lay nearby, half-conscious. Medics worked frantically to keep him stable. His uniform was drenched in blood, and his breathing was irregular. He occasionally opened his eyes, muttering about the Alpha's strength. We all heard terrifying roars from behind a plume of smoke. Soldiers demanded answers about the container's cargo. Their confusion escalated, and they feared more such creatures might be hidden. Michael Stone finally raised his voice over the din, admitting that our cargo was the Alpha Werewolf. He said this being was crucial to national security. He stressed that we could not allow it to escape under any circumstance. The men stared in disbelief. Some cursed the secrecy they had been kept under. Others simply loaded fresh magazines of silver rounds. Our chain of command recognized we had to continue the mission. That meant we needed to subdue the Alpha and secure it in the container again. Tyler was barely responsive, so I took over key coordination. Michael Stone supported me, calling out that we should form 2 teams. One to keep the Alpha contained, the other to hold off the rest of the attackers. One squad advanced with silver bullets, hurling flashbangs around the Alpha to disorient it. Another squad concentrated their fire on the new wave of hostiles. The plan called for driving the Alpha back toward the open container. We lobbed noise grenades that exploded in bright flashes, causing the creature to recoil and shield its face. At the same time, men fired silver rounds at its limbs. Despite its wounds, it still moved with remarkable speed. We saw it swipe at a soldier's helmet, crushing the metal and leaving no chance of survival. Blood spattered on the asphalt. I nearly lost my footing. Meanwhile, the secondary team engaged the attacking werewolves, gunning them down with disciplined bursts. Their numbers had thinned, but their ferocity persisted. Some advanced on all fours, leaping over roadside barriers to close the distance. Our men shot them at point-blank range, often sustaining injuries in the process. Michael Stone recorded everything through his radio logs, including the approximate casualty count. The situation was grim, but we had one objective: drive the Alpha back inside. The squad near the container gathered around the open doors, unleashing suppressive fire whenever the Alpha tried to move away. They aimed for the legs and torso, forcing it to remain within a narrow radius. Flashbangs popped at random intervals, creating a cacophony that disoriented the creature's senses. Gashes covered its body, and fresh wounds stained its fur. Nevertheless, it lunged with lethal intent whenever a soldier stepped too close. After several grueling minutes, a combination of silver shots and distraction allowed us to herd the Alpha to the base of the container ramp. I signaled the men to close in from the sides. They targeted weak spots, firing repeatedly to keep the beast unbalanced. The Alpha snarled, swiping at the air, but we succeeded in driving it up the short incline. The metal floor rattled under its weight. At that moment, I ordered the team to slam the doors. A soldier threw a chain around one handle, and another managed to lock the mechanism. The Alpha slammed against the walls, causing the entire container to rock. Roars echoed from within the steel enclosure. Several men, wounded and exhausted, worked to fasten additional clasps. Michael Stone confirmed that the beast was inside. Our ranks had suffered heavy losses, but we accomplished the immediate task. The gunfire outside continued, though fewer attackers remained. We began a hurried attempt to withdraw from the battlefield. Drivers started their engines, and I relayed instructions to form up behind the lead transport. Just as we lined up for departure, the lead vehicle flipped onto its side, blocking the road. A soldier emerged from the driver's compartment, his bones twisting as he changed into a werewolf. Shock washed over the survivors as we realized a traitor had sabotaged our escape. We had never suspected one of our own. The shape-shifting soldier growled, revealing a monstrous form. Our route away from the carnage was cut off again. The sudden reveal of the traitor's true nature hit us like a hammer blow. Our lead vehicle lay overturned, and the transformed soldier stood on the crumpled metal, roaring with newfound power. The rest of us braced for another battle, forced to realize that the shapeshifter had been among us all this time. Soldiers formed a makeshift barricade of damaged trucks, trying to protect the container, which now held the enraged Alpha werewolf. We had only a few miles left to cover before reaching a reinforced military base with secure gates and walls. Yet those last miles felt like an impossible distance. I gave the order to form a tight defensive perimeter around the container truck. We had enough men to create a ring with vehicles and heavy machine guns. Most of those men were wounded, but they refused to yield. Michael Stone called it our final stand until we could clear a path to retreat. Gunfire erupted again as the newly revealed werewolf leapt from the overturned vehicle and attacked one of our perimeter guards. Silver rounds cut through the air, but the beast moved erratically, forcing us to be careful about friendly fire. It sprang onto another truck, shattering the windshield with a swipe of its claws. Soldiers peppered it with shots, eventually driving it away from the container's immediate vicinity. Smoke and dust obscured our lines of sight. The highway behind us looked like a war zone, littered with twisted metal, shattered glass, and spent ammunition. Bodies of our fallen men and the destroyed attackers lay across the asphalt. The unholy roars of hidden werewolves echoed from the darkness beyond. Our perimeter shrank to a radius of about 50 yards, with the container truck at the center. We used what remained of our vehicles to create partial cover. I positioned men behind wheel wells and beneath chassis, instructing them to hold position. Tyler Brooks, badly injured, was carried into the middle of our ring. Medics tended to his gaping wounds. They discovered that his skin exhibited strange discoloration around the claw marks, and his body temperature spiked dangerously high. He drifted in and out of consciousness, muttering incoherently. When I knelt beside him, I saw a flicker of awareness in his eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice failed. Michael Stone remained calm despite the situation. He radioed ahead, warning the base of our predicament. The distance was only 2 or 3 miles, yet the hostiles blocked every attempt to proceed. We had to wait for a chance to break through. Meanwhile, more werewolves prowled the edges of our perimeter. They tested our defenses with sudden lunges. Silver bullets kept them from overrunning our position, but each attack claimed new casualties. Men who survived earlier wounds lay scattered around the circle, some beyond help. The medics did what they could, but supplies were limited, and the environment offered no shelter. Every soldier realized that if we did not move soon, our losses would be total. Despite those dire circumstances, we fought to protect the truck containing the Alpha. We feared that if the creature escaped again, we would lose any remaining chance of fulfilling our assignment. A fresh wave of howls announced another assault. Several werewolves charged from different angles, leaping over debris. The men on the southern edge fired rapidly, dropping two. Another rushed the northern flank, tackling a gunner and knocking him to the ground. A second soldier reacted with a silver shot to the attacker's chest, stopping the threat. Machine gun fire raked the perimeter, forcing the remaining creatures to pull back. Within the ring, Tyler's condition grew dire. His body trembled, and his breathing grew ragged. One medic tried intravenous fluids, but the equipment was not sufficient for the injuries he had sustained. He had been struck directly by the Alpha. We did not yet know the consequences. Michael Stone and I exchanged uneasy glances. The squad needed leadership, yet Tyler was in no state to command. Time slipped away. We remained pinned on the road, uncertain if reinforcements would arrive. Smoke drifted across the scattered vehicles, and gunshots rang out whenever a shape appeared at the perimeter. The men grew exhausted, their eyes bloodshot from dust and adrenaline. Our mission log, kept by Michael Stone, recorded each passing minute. I felt the weight of those entries, realizing we were nearing a collapse. We had to push on. I instructed the drivers of 2 intact trucks to move into position for a possible escape. If we could break out of this ring, we might drive to the base with the container in tow. Until then, we stayed locked in place, surrounded by hostile forces, waiting for the next confrontation. Tyler's shallow breathing and the Alpha's roars from within the container defined our desperate reality. In the final push, our battered convoy mustered enough determination to force a path through the hostile zone. With the container truck still at the center, we advanced over 2 miles of cracked asphalt. Drivers revved their engines, and soldiers rained silver bullets on any approaching werewolf. The sun had set by the time we saw the concrete walls of the military base, illuminated by harsh floodlights. Barbed wire glinted atop the fortifications, which stood several yards high. We reached the gate at last, battered vehicles grinding to a stop as armed personnel waved us inside. The moment we entered the courtyard, base security teams locked down the perimeter. Razor wire barriers extended behind us, sealing off the gate. Engineers and additional soldiers rushed forward to assist. Medics converged on our wounded, including Tyler Brooks, whose injuries demanded immediate attention. They carried him on a stretcher toward a medical station. His skin radiated an unnatural heat, and the claw marks from the Alpha werewolf appeared infected with a rapid, unknown process. Michael Stone ensured the container's immediate reinforcement. Engineers used heavy chains and installed new locking mechanisms along the door seams, welding extra steel braces around the corners. They measured everything in feet, adding multiple layers of security. The roaring from inside the container echoed across the courtyard. The Alpha, though contained, refused to surrender. Its pounding against the reinforced walls resembled thunder, accompanied by scraping sounds of clawed limbs seeking weakness in the structure. Military doctors performed triage on Tyler. They recognized that his condition was beyond conventional treatment. The slash from the Alpha introduced some transformative property into his bloodstream, and no medication could halt its progress. His body showed signs of heightened senses, and his skin shimmered under the fluorescence. He shifted uncomfortably, drifting between awareness and delirium. Medics debated sedation, but their supplies could not address this unknown infection. Meanwhile, the night brought fresh unease. Guards posted around the courtyard heard muffled snarls from inside the container. Some said they saw the steel bulge outward by an inch or two. Others reported faint screeches of metal bolts being tested from within. The entire base ramped up security, deploying extra watchtowers and searchlights aimed at the surrounding desert. Radio chatter indicated that survivors from the werewolf assault might still prowl nearby. I moved through the yard checking on the remains of our convoy. Most vehicles had bullet holes, shattered glass, or significant structural damage. Our men slumped against walls, covered in grime and blood. Some wept quietly for fallen comrades. Michael Stone conferred with senior officers, relaying the events of our mission and the threat still present within the container. Commanders promised to deploy specialized teams to keep watch overnight. In a far corner, Tyler fought the internal battle alone. A medical officer eventually told me that the infection advanced too rapidly for standard intervention. Under the dim glow of a field lantern, I saw Tyler's eyes turn feral. His fingers twitched with spasm, and the veins in his arms bulged. He managed to speak a few words about having no regrets in following the mission, but I sensed the unstoppable change taking hold. At midnight, the first sign of Tyler's transformation became obvious. He convulsed, gasping for air. The medics around him backed away in alarm. His bones contorted beneath taut skin. The shimmer we had seen before intensified, pulsing in waves across his arms and chest. He let out a low growl, no longer resembling the soldier we knew. Guards nearby realized what was happening. They raised their rifles, uncertain whether to shoot or wait. I arrived just as Tyler's features elongated, and thick fur spread across parts of his face. Michael Stone approached from behind me, and we both froze at the sight. Tyler's eyes flickered with an unearthly light, and he roared, rising to a bestial stance. The men around us scrambled for cover, and an officer called for an immediate lockdown of the area. It was too late to contain him. Tyler leapt forward, pushing medics aside. Silver bullets might have stopped him, but the men hesitated, still seeing glimpses of the respected squad leader beneath those savage features. He sprinted across the courtyard, howling. In that instant, I understood that being wounded by the Alpha meant inheriting the curse. Agents and soldiers realized it as well, horrified by the new threat we now faced. Our fight was far from over.